My sisters never liked me, so she thought she could get away with lying, manipulating, and twisting my words to break up my relationship with the love of my life. And if she thinks I'm going to let that slide, I guess she doesn't know me very well, because I'm coming for her. And I'm coming with a vengeance. I have a younger sister, Emily, who still lives at home with our parents. Emily has always been a brat. My parents, my mom especially, spoiled her rotten from the moment she was born. My mom had always wanted a little girl and was disappointed when she found her firstborn would be a boy. And trust me, I felt that disappointment every single day of my life. Growing up, she always favored Emily. If I had something and Emily wanted it, she got it. Either I had to give mine to her, or Mom would just go to the store and get her own. We never got along. I always thought she was a spoiled little brat, and she kept trying to lay claim to my stuff so that Mom will make me give them to her or get her some of her own. She knew that she had Mom wrapped around her finger and took advantage of every chance she got. Every Christmas, Emily got what she wanted. I had to take what I could get, and Emily's birthdays were sacred. She always got parties and showered with gifts, and I was lucky if we even went out to dinner for mine. I was miserable constantly living in her shadow, so when it came time for me to go off to college, I was over the moon. In college, I met Mara. We were both studying accounting and were in the most of the same classes, and we hit it off instantly and started dating about a month later. We did just about everything together, even applying to the same accounting firm after we graduated. Last year, I took Mara home to meet my parents, and by the time I'd already decided she was going to be my wife. She and Emily became fast friends, which worried me a bit because Emily never had a favorable opinion of me. But I did not think anything of it at the time, and I wanted them to at least be cordial with each other. Little did I know that the whole time, Emily had been poisoning the well and feeding Mara all these horrible lies about me. At first, it started off casual, one-off comments, and she would say I was a slob when I was younger. I'd leave the bathroom and the kitchen a mess, etc. By this time, Mara and I had already lived together, and she knew that was simply not true. Then her comments got a bit more sinister. She'd tell Mara I would have girls over all the time, and I used to send explicit pictures to random girls on the Book of Faces. Again, not true. Mara was the first girl I'd brought home to my parents, and I barely even use social media. Mara knows this, but I could tell Emily was getting under her skin. She came home after they went out and asked me questions about these things. I constantly had to reassure her, telling her that my sister was just never fond of me and that we never get along. I had this sneaking suspicion my sister was trying to turn my fiance against me. So, one Sunday when I went to my parents' house for dinner, I confronted her about it. I told them to stop feeding Mara disgusting lies about me, or she'd be uninvited from our wedding. My mom, of course, took Emily's side and said I was being too harsh. She said Emily had just been joking around when she said those things, and Mara just took them a bit too serious. Who jokes about that kind of stuff, though? I mean, seriously. It's not even funny. And Emily has always felt entitled to everything I have, so I would not be surprised if she's jealous of me and Mara's relationship and was doing her best to sabotage it. Emily promised she'd stop with the jokes. She said she was just trying to bond with Mara because she'd always wanted a sister, and that she did not mean to cause any contention in our relationship. I was hesitant to believe her, but gave her the benefit of the doubt just this once. I told them if she did it again, not only was she uninvited from the wedding, I will seriously go no contact with her completely. I really love Mara, and I was not about to let my sister jeopardize our relationship and future together. Shortly after that, I proposed to Mara, and we were planning our wedding. We wanted something small and intimate with just our families. So, a few months before the wedding, Mara's parents came to town and we planned a dinner at my parents' house where both families could meet. Mara's parents and my parents met for the first time. Everything was going well. We were talking about the venue, reception, dresses, boring wedding stuff. Neither of us wanted to spend much money, but Mom was insistent we have some grand fairy tale style wedding that would cost a fortune. I could tell it was making Mara uncomfortable, so I cut the conversation short and suggested we all sit down for a dinner. After we served the food, my father wanted to propose a toast to me and Mara's engagement, but Emily cut him short. She said she could not just sit here and act like everything was okay when she had proof that I was cheating. Oh boy. The table went pretty silent. I told Emily I don't know what she's talking about, but she just better quit while she was ahead. I didn't have any patience for her nonsense, but she pulled out her phone and passed it around the table. She said I'd been sending sexual messages to other women behind Mara's back. Some of these women had reached out to her because they knew she was my sister and asked her to get me to stop. Complete and utter lies. The only social media I have is Facebook, and I barely use it, and I've been nothing but faithful to Mara since we started dating. I saw the screenshots, and they were obviously fabricated. I did not speak the way the person in the messages spoke. My mom piled on and asked me how could I do something so awful to such a nice girl. She and Dad are boomers who fall for the most obviously fake garbage on the internet, so I didn't expect them to understand that messages could be fabricated. Emily starts to apologize to Mara, saying she warned her of how awful I was, and she wished Mara did not have to find out this way. She just could not sit there and say nothing while she knew how I was behaving behind her back. I told Emily to shut her lying butt up. I could tell Mara was on the brink of tears, so I pulled her aside. I tried to explain that the messages were obviously fake, but she would not listen. She was already hurt and embarrassed, and she refused to even speak with me. She grabbed her stuff and left immediately with her parents. I was absolutely livid. I went back into the kitchen and blew up on Emily. Absolutely blew a fuse. I called her a selfish, lying, manipulating brat. I yelled at my mother and blamed her for Emily being a rotten human being. I told them they deserve each other, and I hope they rot for ruining my relationship. I told them if they called, texted, or tried to contact me again, I would get a restraining order. I got so loud that the neighbors came to check and see if everything was okay. Emily yelled back at me, though, and told me this is exactly why nobody loved me, or would ever love me, because I just ruin everything I touch. That's why Mother and Dad always hated me. She called me disgusting and an embarrassment. I did not have the energy to go back and forth with her. I sped off in my car and refused to speak to anyone after. Mara left town with her parents, and she texted me to say she needed some time alone just to think. I wrote a long message begging and pleading with her to just sit down and talk to me. I told I'll be willing to let her go through my phone and laptop, whatever she wanted. I would have done anything to get her back. An agonizing week goes by, and she finally sends me a text. She asked me to meet for lunch, and I was super nervous. I showed up with flowers and honey cake from our favorite coffee shop. When we sat down, I poured my heart out to her. I told them how sorry I was for the embarrassment my sister caused her and her family, and I promised to make it up to her. However, I showed her my phone and laptop and showed her that I had never, ever sent any of those incriminating messages. She sat quietly and listened to everything, and when I was done, she just calmly handed me the engagement ring. She said she could not do it anymore. She'd already called all the vendors and caterers in the wedding and canceled everything. She's done. She didn't want to marry me. Needless to say, I was heartbroken. I tried to explain more, but she was not hearing me out. She told me she had applied for a job in a different town where her parents live, and she'd stop by the apartment the next day for her stuff. I realized then that there was nothing I could do to sway her. So, I let her go. When she came to get her stuff the next day, I had everything packed up in boxes. The most she would give me was a hug before she left, and After that, I took a leave of absence from work. I was too depressed to do anything but lie in bed and cry. The whole time I was getting messages from extended family members telling me how awful of a human I am and that I should be ashamed of myself for what I've done to that poor girl. About 2 weeks after I started feeling more like myself, I was still heartbroken, yeah, but I was more angry about what Emily did. I talked to my father and he said the evidence looked pretty darn incriminating. He did not understand that conversations and screenshots can be spoofed. I imagine Mara's parents don't either. It's been months since I last spoke to my family, and I was focused on work and taking up new hobbies, trying to better myself. Then absolutely out of the blue, I get a text from my dad saying they want me over for dinner that Sunday. He said it's very important and it would mean a lot to the family if I came. I had no desire to see them, I'll be honest with you, but I figured it must be important, so against my better judgment, I went. It turns out my sister's engaged. She met some guy named Greg online, and they're getting married in 2 months. They've known each other for less than a year. The dinner was to celebrate their engagement, and the minute I got there, Emily was shoving Greg in my face, telling me how wonderful he is and how happy he's made her, and how excited she is for their future together. I knew she was trying to get a rise out of me, just like when we were kids. She saw I had a happy relationship and she wanted that too. But she had to ruin mine first, of course. Emily was never grown up. She's still that same little brat that she always was, and I was not going to let it slide. I remained cordial with everyone there. I said hi to my parents, mostly my dad, and I told him I had to leave. When I got home, I sat on my laptop and drove into Emily's social media. I only knew of her Facebook account, but apparently she also has a TikTok. I went through both of them. Apparently, she and Greg had met 6 months ago, around the same time she screwed up my relationship. She constantly gushed about him on social media. They had this whole perfect couple persona going on. It was way worse on TikTok, though. She has videos of them getting dressed together and going out for dinner. When I dug deeper into her TikTok, way back to the beginning, I found some disturbing stuff. There were videos of her half naked, which I really did not need or want to see, but there was this one video where the caption was this: "When you're jealous of your brother's relationship, so you ruin it." I was so freaking mad. I had to let everyone know about this, but most importantly, I had to show this to Mara. I sent her the video and a lengthy message saying I was not trying to win her back. I just wanted her to know I was not lying and I never was. Emily befriended Mara and gained her trust so she could betray us both. I'm not sure if I'll hear back from her, but even if I don't, I'm getting my revenge on Emily, best believe that. My sister is sick in the head, and I'm tired of her thinking she can get away with whatever the hell she wants. Update number 1. It's been a week and Mara finally reached out to me. She was in town on the weekend and we met up at a cafe. Before we knew we even started talking, she burst out crying and just kept saying she was sorry over and over. She said she did not mean to give back the ring or cancel the wedding. It was her parents who convinced her to do it. They did not like my mom's behavior or Emily's outburst at dinner. They thought my family was awful and did not think she would be safe with me. If she'd said that when we met the first time, I would have zero issues giving low or no contact with my family. It's done wonders for my mental health these past few months anyways, and Mara told me she showed the video to her parents and they were shocked and angry. I told her of my plans for revenge and asked her if she wanted to be involved. She said she'd love to. I showed her the rest of Emily's videos that I'd found, along with the post with her fiance. My mom and dad were planning a huge wedding, and from what I gathered at the dinner, a lot of money had already been spent. If what we're about to do works, all that will be going down the drain. And I won't feel bad for them at all. They chose to believe Emily over me so they can suffer with her. The next day, I called my father and asked him if I was allowed to bring a +1. He was curious about who I was bringing, but I lied. Told him it's just a friend from work. But that did not stop members of my extended family from speculating. They were blowing up my phone asking me who I was bringing. I even got a call from Emily where she told me that no one truly loves me and that every relationship I have was doomed to fail, and she'd make sure of it. Well, I let her have her little moment, because what I was about to do, oh boy, it's going to ruin her. I saved all the videos I found on a USB drive, and before the wedding, I met with Mara one last time to finalize our plan. And I took a risk and offered her back the ring. I'd kept it the whole time. I wasn't trying to pressure her into anything. I told her she could just keep the ring, and if she changed her mind, I'm open to starting over. The wedding's in a few days, and I can't wait. Both for Emily to finally get her comeuppance, and because I'll be going with Mara. Wish me luck. Update number 2. Hey guys, some exciting news. The wedding was 2 days ago, and I have a lot to talk about. First, some good news. When I picked up Mara, she was wearing the ring. She said she wanted to start over too, so we're officially engaged again. My parents rented out a huge hall for the wedding, and it seemed my mom convinced Emily to have a fairy tale wedding. All the things my mom wanted in my wedding were there. Fresh flowers, drapery, the works. It could not have been cheap. There were also a lot of guests, most of our extended family and friends, and catering had to be at least 200 people. As much as I hate my sister, I had to admit, she looked absolutely stunning and very happy. And Greg seemed like a nice enough guy, though she does not deserve him. Our family was gushing over the bride and groom, which gave me and Mara the perfect opportunity to execute our plan. There was a projector hooked up that was displaying a rotating montage of pre-wedding photos of Emily and Greg. When the guy who was operating it went to grab a bit of a bite to eat from the buffet, I love buffets, I plugged my USB drive in and played the videos I'd found on TikTok. At first, nobody noticed, so I bumped up the volume until Emily's voice was loud enough to be heard outside. And then I rushed back to my seat. Everyone at the reception got quiet and just stared at the screen as Emily herself explained how she sabotaged my relationship word for word. Emily starts yelling, "Turn it off! Turn it off!" Really loud, but the audio-visual guy had gone to the bathroom or something. Some of my extended family tried, but they're boomers and could not figure out how the system worked. It wasn't until one of my younger cousins went over and turned it off, but the damage was done. People started murmuring. The manager of the event tried to salvage the situation with a dumb joke. Can't even remember what he said, but oh boy, it was awkward. Emily started sobbing uncontrollably, and my mom went over to comfort her. Greg got up and left the table, along with his best man, who I think was his brother. Greg's family members walked out of the reception behind him. Meanwhile, Mara and I were having our fill of food and dessert from the buffet. She asked if I felt bad about what I did, and of course I didn't. I was just doing to Emily what she was doing to me since we were kids. I'm not sure what happened after the reception ended. Last I saw, my mom was ushering a crying Emily out of the hall. According to Father, no one heard from Greg since the wedding. I know for a fact my sister had been feeding them lies about me, but both Greg and his parents were giving me weird looks when I was invited to dinner that one time. Emily's been trapped in her room mostly. She's been calling my phone, leaving voicemails of her crying and screaming at me. She said I ruined her life and her only chance at happiness. Well, I guess she knows how I feel now. My mom also had a few choice words for me. She says I should have just brought it up to the family to discuss privately instead of airing all this dirty laundry for the world to see. Yeah, that's not going to work. They would have just gaslit me into thinking I was the bad guy. I wish it did not have to happen this way, but for the sake of my name, my sanity, and my relationship with Mara, I had to do it. I don't have any regrets. Except not checking Emily's social media sooner. Thank you, TikTok. Update number 3. This is the final update. So, Emily and Greg are getting divorced, and to be honest, this has to be some kind of record for the fastest annulment. They had a meeting the other day, and my father gave me the short version. My parents went with Emily to meet with Greg and his family, and they tried to frame the situation as not being as bad as it seemed. But Greg said after the reception, he went through every single TikTok and saw everything. He already had the divorce papers ready. He said she could try to fight it in court, but it would be best if they just parted ways amicably. The only thing he'd paid for was the rings, and he asked for them back. There was a huge fight after that, because Emily refused to give him the rings, saying our parents paid for the wedding, so she should be able to keep them. My dad says she still had them, and Greg is threatening to sue. It's an absolute mess, and I'm glad I'm not deeply involved. This really sucks for my parents because they paid for the entire wedding, which, according to my father, cost them somewhere north of $40,000. As far as I know, Emily does not have a job. She's done some freelance work here and there, but nothing concrete, so she did not contribute at all. I have not been back to my parents' house, so I have no idea what the atmosphere there is like. My mom and Emily have gone completely no contact with me, which is completely fine by me. The less I have to see and talk to them, the better. Well, I've been spending my time catching up with Mara and planning my own wedding. We're going to do something small. My extended family members reached out to me, both to apologize for not believing me and to offer help with anything Mara and I need for the wedding. We decided to have a party at my aunt and uncle's house instead of a reception. They have a pretty big backyard, and we'd rather spend more money on our honeymoon. We're thinking of either somewhere in the Caribbean, or maybe even Japan. I also met with Mara's parents again, and they apologized for jumping to conclusions after the spectacle Emily caused at dinner. Mara had told them my family, and Emily especially, was awful to me growing up. They gave me their blessings to marry their daughter, which I am happy about. I'm going to do my final fitting for my tuxedo tomorrow. The wedding will be in a month's time, so hopefully I don't put on any weight in the meantime. I'm excited to finally be marrying the woman of my dreams and looking forward to our future together. Thank you everybody for sticking by me this entire time. Okay guys, I've narrated quite a lot of stories on this channel, and there's not many characters recently that I have disliked more than Emily. I mean, it just seemed like Emily was going out of her way to just ruin her brother's life for no good apparent reason, other than the fact that she was simply jealous? I don't know, but a lot of the commenters were saying OP went a bit too far, but I just don't see how. I think Emily deserved it. Yeah, maybe it's because the parents spent all this money and they're basically collateral damage. So let me just ask you guys. What do you think about this? Do you think OP went too far to expose his rotten, toxic sister at her giant fairy tale wedding? Drop your comments down below. Let's discuss this in detail. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I post every single day, so if you want more daily videos, the best way is simple. Subscribe to the channel, click the bell notifications, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya!